Katie, are you ready to roll?
I think so.
Okay, perfect.
Well, hi there, everybody. Hope you're all doing well. We are excited to bring you our classified staff event today. We are going to be very excited to be back together in person next year. This is 2 times that we've had to do this via Zoom or webinar format. So it'll be great when we are all back together. I want to introduce the person who is keeping us going today and kind of handling all the technology details and getting everything handled, and that is Katie Alexander. And Katie is new to MCCA. She has been with us, a little over a month, I guess, about 5 or 6 weeks. And we are thrilled to have her. She is our new Director of Communications. We've had a little bit of turnover at MCCA, and so we are in the process of rebuilding an even stronger team. And it's going to be great. We're going to continue to have some really wonderful professional development offerings as we continue on this year and into the future. So without further ado, I want to turn it over to Tabitha Summers from OTC. Hi, Cheryl Fowler. How are you doing? It's good to see your name pop up on something. We'll turn it over to Tabitha. Tabitha is an instructor of nursing and part of the workforce development team at OTC. And we are really lucky to have her with us today and this afternoon. I think you all are going to hear from folks at Strengths University, who has been a really good partner for MCCA for a while. And so without further ado, we've got a great agenda, so we'll go ahead and let you all get started.
Hello. Hi, everybody. This is Tabitha. And so today I am presenting the information of Coached. So this is a tool that we're going to walk through, and you're going to learn lots of things today. So first, I want to have everyone introduce themselves in the chat. So tell us who you are, where you work, and what you do there. And then one thing about yourself that no one may not know, and one animal that you could own if you could own any animal. So mine, to give you an example, is that my name is Tabitha. I work for OTC. I'm the program director for the specialized programs, and I enjoy collecting bags and baskets, and I would love to own a unicorn. I'll give you guys a few minutes there. Okay, it's nice to meet you, Jane and Cheryl. Kim, Becky, Becca. A zebra would be fun to own. They're awesome. A dolphin, that's awesome. Tiger, very exotic animals. Yes, an exotic animal is very fun and would be very scary to own, but it would be amazing to own one of those. A cow. Okay, so we will continue and get started here. Thank you for introducing yourselves. It's nice to have you guys here today. So a little bit about me. My name is Tabitha Summers, and I am a nurse. I have a bachelor's degree. I'm almost done with a master's. I am the program manager, lead instructor for our specialized programs for allied health at CWD at OTC. And I've been here for about 5 years. I've been a nurse for 13 years. I love to educate and I love nursing, so I wanted to combine those together. So today I want to present the COACH acronym to you to help you in the workplace to be successful. And so in order to be successful, we want to lead yourself and lead your team. You need to have many tools in your tool belt. So this training should help you have these tools and put them all together so they're easy to remember. And as a leader, it is essential for you to learn and to inspire and impact and lead others. So, but first, I wanted to get started with a mindfulness exercise. This will help us to kind of relax, focus on what we're learning today. Everyone needs a little 5-minute breather. So we'll get this video going.
Hey, Tabitha, I'm not sure we're seeing the video. I think we're still all seeing the PowerPoint.
Okay, that is fine. I will change that. How about now? Do you
Yes,
see
there
the?
we go. I can see it now.
Okay,
If anybody can't see it, let us know in the chat.
my apologies.
Yeah, no worries.
Zoom and I are not always friends. Okay, here we go. We'll begin again here. now that we're all in, we will begin back to our PowerPoint here. Okay. So I have a little riddle before we get started into this information, just to kind of give you guys a little bit of jitters out. So now that we've relaxed, and can you riddle me this? So what goes up but never comes down? So if you want to give a quick answer in the chat, what do you think goes up but never comes down? Well, Becca is very smart. She is absolutely correct. It is your age. Your age, you can never change. It always goes up, but it never goes back down. So awesome. Thank you. So a little bit of history about this acronym COACHED. So one day I was sitting around and I was like, how do I want to teach my students to remember things and put things together so that they can get great care to their patients? So the first came was OAED, observe, assess. So, and then educate and then document. So we're like, well, OAED, that will be confused with AED. So we're like, let's make coached. And I was sitting with Jackie and Amy from OTC Online, and we were coming up with this coached acronym so that our students can give better care, and always remember, if they do all these steps, then they are actually going to be successful in the care that they give. So then I said, well, how about using coached to help others in their professional roles and in themselves and their daily lives. So we'll go into what the first letter means. C. So what do you think the first letter means? Say in the chat for me. Close. Communication is close. Co-promise, corporate. Those are all excellent choices. So the first C means to care. Okay. And Hannah suggested if you guys could use all panelists and attendees so that everyone can see your answers, unless it's something that you want to personally send to somebody. That would be awesome. Thank you. So when we care for our employees or students or administrative personnel or whoever it may be, we are caring for them and their needs, and we will help to make the workplace flow better, and the employees want to know that the place they work at cares about them. So this will also help students, if you are an educator, to help them feel that they are important within your class, and that we are here to care for their needs when they're with us, either as an employee or as a student. So caring begins with renewal, which is physical, value, which is emotional, focus, which is mental, purpose, which is spiritual. So renewal or physical, it's taking breaks to rejuvenate, helps them to be able to be more fresh and approach the day better, and have a standard of short work hours will help to rejuvenate your person, or just finding ways to rejuvenate yourself and being focused for your day. Value and emotion going to go hand in hand. If an employee knows that they're valued, then they have more security and trust within the work environment, and allows them to have consistency, and they feel that their values are needed and looked upon from the employer. So focus and mental, able to have less distractions and able to have more focus will help the employee be better at their job and get more done and have higher quality of work that is done. Purpose equals spiritual. If the sense of purpose and matter is there, then it will show in their work, and the employee will be more motivated to get things accomplished. So we're going to look at the Maslow's law of our hierarchy of need. And many of you may be familiar with this. But so we're going to start with physical needs. So if their physical needs are met, so does your employee or student have food, drinks, somewhere to sleep? Basically, their needs need to be met. And if this is hard to determine within your staffing or your student, but if these needs are met, then they can move to the next level of safety needs. So are your employees or students safe in their environment, home or on campus? Do they feel loved and belonged? So is their workspace, classroom inviting place feels a sense of belonging? Do they feel that they can be there and be a part of that work environment, that team? And then if they feel that they belong and they feel that they are valued, then esteem. So are your employees or students able to feel it and express their achievements, feel that they can receive that accomplishment within that team, and express that that they're valued, and the esteem of feeling full? And then finally, self-actualization. So does the employee or student have the opportunity to reach their highest potential? A lot of times people leave because they don't feel that they have any potential to go further or grow within that position. A lot of times people don't reach this top level, but we want to strive for them to meet all these levels. So when meeting their care needs, they can focus 30% higher than before, a nearly 50% higher level of engagement, and 63% greater likelihood to stay at your company. Meeting a single need promotes only a modest 6% reduction in people's stress. Meeting 3 needs reduces 30%, and meeting all 4 needs or more leads to 70% drop in stress. So if their needs are met within that organization or classroom, then they will feel secure and be able to succeed better. So now we move to O. What do you think O stands for? Organization, that's a good one. Observe. Lisa, you are correct. O stands for observe. So you can learn a lot just by observing somebody. So when we observe someone, we need to do the observation on employees or students to observe them, and that everything is done to their level of what they need. They're knowledgeable, they're getting their work done, they're on time, they have the things that they need, they're in place. So if you're observing employees, you want to look for these things. Are they struggling to get the job accomplished? Why? Or are they getting it accomplished? Do they need training, tools, or equipment to get the job done? So like update software, programs, leadership training. Are they appearing happy and expressing their care needs? Why or why not? How is the interaction with other employees, clients, or students? And if you have students, you can look at IEP materials, special services, or resources. Can you change how to teach them? So changing the way to the student's learning style. How is their attitude and interaction with others? Are they expressing their needs? So you can apply some of these to even your employees or yourself. And then in the observation section, we are just watching and looking to see what we need to add, change, or keep doing. And when we're doing that, we want to, we're just looking at, are they getting this job done successfully? Are they here on time? Can they, do they feel that they're healthy? Are we giving them the resources that they need? So we move to A. What do you think A stands for? Okay, knowledge, that's a good one. Attitude, that's another good point. So analyze, so it can be analyzed. We're going to go with assess. So when we're assessing individuals during an assessment part of the acronym, the employer or student will be assessed to ensure that the components implemented are working, and if they are not, then adjustment needs to be made, or reevaluation. The stage will be done within the workplace, and it does go hand in hand with observation, because observation, we're going to observe what's going on, what can we fix, and then assess. We're going to implement and then assess, did it work, did it not work? So assessment, so what is what you have implemented working? So if the implementation is working, then you continue it. If it is not working, then we need to alter or change the implementation and reevaluate. Assessing is to determine, estimate, or judge the value of something. So we do this after we observe them. So you can do observing and assessing kind of hand in hand. So is their attitude, is it better or interaction appropriate within this work environment? If the product or their work increased or improved? Is their education implemented and successful? If the employee expressed that they're happy in their role in the company they work for, then this shows that the components implemented to improve the workplace is successful. So here's an example of observe and assess. So when you're observing, when you see an employee not turning in work, and you sit down with that employee and determine why they're not able to complete their work on time. And then your assessment would be to make a plan and then come back and determine if the plan worked well with that employee. So that moves us to the other acronym, C letter. What do you think this C stands for? Change, that's a good one. Continue. Those are all important. So we're going to go with communication. Communication is the key. Communication is very important. Without the communication, there can be confusion and people miss things, and this will lead to upset employees or students and a dysfunctional work team or environment. So communication involves messages. To communicate a message, it has to be given and received. There are 3 components needed to deliver a message by communication. These are a message, a sender, and a receiver. Without them, there is no message, there is no communication. And communication can be in any form as long as the employer student has the can successfully understand the communication, and communication is done continuously to reduce confusion. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of the 7th rule, but the 7th rule of communication is 7% is verbal and 93% is nonverbal. So nonverbal component was made up of body language is 55% and tone of voice is 38%. So people can read what you are saying by your body language and your tone of voice versus what you're actually telling them. So it's very important how you present something to somebody and how you communicate with them and how you deliver that communication. So examples would be emails, meetings, face-to-face interactions, and other interactions could be a short conversation, Teams, messages. Nonverbal cues are number 1 important. So, making sure you understand your body language and how you're presenting that to others. So successful communication looks like this baby that's really happy. Dysfunctional or miscommunication looks like this. This woman obviously didn't read the weather report or got a miscommunication somewhere about the weather coming. So discommunication is the lack of communication that is effective. Staff is spread out, so your staff is not all together. Tools were missed, important responses, language barriers, ethnic and cultural barriers, educational differences, and then differences in experience of the workforce. So when we want to be successful, we want to be timely, be inclusive, and meet the needs of your staff. If it's important to them, make sure you share that in a timely manner so that they know what's going on and they can be able to effectively do their job. So that brings us to letter H. What do you think letter H stands for? Honesty, that's a good one. Happy, help. Those are all good. Help, yes, we always need help. Okay, so we're gonna go with health. So health is very important for employees, students. So keep employees at work and performance to their best potential by making sure that their health is good and that they're being healthy. So ways that we can do that will be wellness programs, smoking cessation classes, promotion and prevention of care, health food options, sick time, health insurance, mental health care, ways to improve health for the educational students would be vaccines or physical abilities, or even employees, mental health care for employees or students, wellness health activities, gyms, access to health clinics, and healthy foods. So all these things can help you to ensure that your employees are coming to work healthy, ensure that they know that you care about their health because you are providing these different services or improving what you're offering at the job. So health education is a win-win for employee and employer, students, or instructors. So when a company focuses on employee health, then it's safe and healthy workplaces produce enhanced self-esteem, reduces stress, improves morals, and increase in job satisfaction, increase skills, health protection, improves overall health, improves sense of well-being is seen. So they come in with a positive image of the company, they reduce their absences, they reduce turnover, and they improve staff morals, increase productivity, reduce healthcare insurance costs, and you have a reduction in people not coming to work. That's very important. So overall, that basically stated that. So we move now to the letter E. What do you think letter E stands for? Encourage, that's a good one. Educate, evolve. Educate is correct. So education is the key to success. Without education, we don't strive, we don't grow. So it's important to increase retention, improve job performances, and enhance their careers. So examples of way we can improve education. So professional development, completing higher degree, seminars, etc. These examples set people up for success, expand the knowledge base, build confidence, helps one to set and achieve goals, and allows the individual to grow professionally. So we want to promote and encourage people to become more educated, or it could be as simple as a small seminar or something that will help you be successful in your job. And the last one is D. What do you think D stands for? Dedicate, that's a good one. Anyone else? No, okay. So we're gonna go with documentation. Not documented, not done. So documentation is important. The old nurse saying, if it wasn't documented, it wasn't done. So correct documentation. Documentation can look like student progress, test behaviors, documentation of employee behaviors, performances. Did a classroom or the program that you guys offer or a certain way of doing things work? Did it not work? Documenting why and why it didn't work so you can fix it. Other documentation, paperwork, state, federal, or certifying agencies. So any documentation that you would have in your position or interacting with someone that's important is important to have. If you don't have it, then it looks like it wasn't completed. And then now we are to a little bit of a break. It went faster than I thought it was going to. So if you guys want to stretch your legs for about 10 minutes, and then we'll come back and we will break you guys up into breakout sessions, and we'll do a nice little fun exercise. We're gonna go to our breakout session, part 1. So if everyone can get a piece of paper, write the letters coached down on the left-hand side, and then you're going to take 10 minutes to discuss ways that you can improve or implement each piece of the coached acronym within your role at your work. You will do this with the breakout groups if we can get you in breakout groups, and you'll do that. We'll come back after 10 minutes and share your ideas that you have came up with. So I will have Miss Alexandra help us to do this. Is she there? Okay, so I don't think we're able to do that. So then if you guys can just do it individually, take a piece of paper, write down coached, and on the left-hand side, COACHED, and then do this by yourself, and then we will talk about it after 10 minutes. Hello, everyone. It's been about 10 minutes, so let's come back and share what you've came up with. Just raise your hand.
If anyone has some feedback they'd like to share, if you can use the hand raise button at the bottom, I can actually allow you to talk. So that way we can hear you and you don't have to type it in the chat. Okay, Becca, I think you should be good.
Thank you. I think one of the things, especially in higher education, that we struggle with from time to time is taking care of each other's mental health. And I think as a supervisor, I can be more intentional with my direct reports, encouraging them to take a quote unquote mental health day, making sure that as we're gearing up for our busy time of year, whatever that is for our department, that the staff is considering taking some meaningful time off. And when they take that meaningful time off, that they are truly unplugging. I think we can get tempted about thinking a week from now, I'm going to have so many emails in my inbox, but encouraging them to unplug, not check those emails, not be tempted to sign in, and help them to know that as a supervisor, I'm here, and as a team, we are here to support your students in your absence, and we will keep going. So take that time and really rejuvenate and unplug and come back refreshed.
Absolutely, I agree. I took 2 weeks off recently, and it was very hard to unplug because those emails come in and you have students and you have people that need something. So taking that time to unwind, not think about the work for a week or two or however many days you have off, and making sure that you really just take a mental break from thinking of all the stress at work and then worry about it when you come back. So I agree with you 100%. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else? Okay, well, if that is all, we'll go move on. So we've discussed the ways, and some examples that I can give you is, so for care, mindful exercises, you can implement those within your organization or within your group or team. Healthy eating potluck, so have a potluck that has a healthy options. Every once in a while, celebrate each other. Employees need to feel the need in order to have drive. Resources and information to give to them on how to be healthy. Walking groups to observe, so weekly, bi-weekly, monthly meetings with staff. Tasks being accomplished, making sure that you check, or how are you doing? How's things going? Is the atmosphere good with your work team? How can we help you? And assess. So you want to assess the team is working well together. Everyone is able to express themselves. Education is integrated into the workflow to allow them to have training. Policies are working and are still appropriate. Equipment is being used, or there's a need for new equipment. Your staff's needs are met, and evaluations of yourself and your staff from time to time to encourage high quality work performance, and just to make sure that you're there and they know that you're available to them. Communication, having meetings, sending out memos or conversations with your staff or students, individualized or in small groups. So making sure that everyone is on the same page. Health, so get vaccines, make sure that you're getting your physical every year, that you're staying healthy and fit and doing those promotional health exams, or going to make sure you get, if you have like mammograms or whatever it may be, to keep yourself healthy so that you can prevent complications. Striving to make something small a little better within your health or your life to improve or promote your health. And so this will help to deliver high quality work and make you feel more rejuvenated and ready to go to work and stay at work. And then education, so have time and provide professional development, strive to want to improve learning and increase education. So we always want to strive to make sure that our staff or even yourself, you can have this own strive to educate or always make sure you improve something. It could be small, something big. You know, that's why I'm getting my master's degree, because I want to make sure that I have the education that I need to deliver the best training to my students and then within my job. And then document. Always make sure that you have documentation, whether it may be, did you talk to your employee? Did you have to do warnings or coaching? So documentation can be look like coaching information, but always make sure you collect that, because again, it is very important to make sure we have that documentation to follow our progress. And it helps us to look back to see what didn't work and what we need to fix, or what worked and what we can keep doing. So this brings us to our second part of this session, is that there's going to be a handout that she will send you. And the handout is basically analysis, a tool of how can we do these things? Are we meeting the coach for them? So if you can take about 10 or 15 minutes by yourself it's a PDF, so you can download it and fill it out using one of the examples that I'll give you, and just take it and take the scenario and basically complete it as if that was your employee or a peer or someone that you work closely with. If you can't think of any, I have a few here, examples for you. So one is working that your worker has a hard time coming to work on time. He or she finds herself having trouble with obligations at home and cannot figure out how to organize these two worlds. His or her clothes look big on him, and he or she seems to be sad, scatterbrained, and stressed. Okay. Example 2, peer that is always complaining that he or she was not able to get the equipment he or she needs to complete the project that they need to complete. A worker that wants to eat healthy, but the cafeteria has no good food options, and so they go down to McDonald's every day, and then they come back and complain that they ate bad food. Employee who has a boss that does not communicate with him or her on the staff, and they feel that that they do not get the information that they need to do their job. If you're deal with students, student that states that they need assistance, or it can even be an employee with their work. So they're not able to get things done. They can't focus because they may have ADHD, or they have a hard time reading fast. So, how can we help them? Person or student that notices that they're sitting in the back of the class, or they're not engaged. So this one here talks about not engagement within the work team. They never want to speak up. They're always shy, but they could be bold. They have opportunity. So how are we going to help them? A person wanting to help everyone that steps in the office and even gives people things on her desk to help them. So how can we approach this person or help this person? Or you can come up with your own scenario during this mock analysis. So the attachment is there for you if you can download it and then fill it out, and then we will come back and we will discuss what you came up with and how you help this person.
If anyone else is having trouble with the file, just let me know and I can just shoot you an email.
Since there was an issue downloading, I'll give you guys a little more time so that you can open that up and take a look at it and fill it out. Okay, so hopefully you guys were able to get the document and look over it and fill it out. So we're gonna discuss your analysis. So who wants to go first, wants to share their thought?
If anyone just wants to use the hand raise function again, and I can turn on your talk function.
Okay, well, I will share mine and then maybe then you guys can interject. So I will share the screen with you here. So I use the example for the person that came in with the clothes big and she was always late and she was stressed. So looking at the first page, care. So physical needs are met. So probably not because her clothes are big. She may need some clothes. She may need something else that helps her to be functional at work. Psychosocial or emotional needs. So she may have a lot to deal with organization or stress management. And so we may have to look at something to help her with that. A learning need. So maybe give us some education on time management and organization. Is our safety needs met? Well, she didn't express having anything unsafe or feeling unsafe. So we're going to say yes. Belonging, actualization needs. She does not feel that she's organized in both worlds, so she doesn't feel like she potentially is worthy in both worlds. So this is more of, when you're talking to someone, you're going to get, are you meeting their care needs? Or observation. So does she have attendance issue? Yes, she's late every other day or every day. She has an imbalance of home and work so that she's struggling to connect information. Are you having, she's having work issues? She probably isn't, but her being late could potentially move into having work issues. Are they having trouble connecting with others? So she's not having trouble connecting with others, just basically organizing those two worlds. She's having trouble critical thinking, possibly because she can't figure out how to balance that. And then she expressed to a coworker that she needs to find something to bring, somewhere to bring her children, or find somewhere that she can have someone come in and help her, maybe drop them off early. So what did we do to help her? So we gave her some references on where she can bring her child in the morning, or people that, if you know those references, adjusting her time work schedule to accommodate her for the children being dropped off, maybe giving her a voucher for clothing donation, or giving her some donations that we've collected, and provide her with professional training on how to be organized, balanced at work and home. And so you're kind of taking care of the person as a whole. I mean, some of these may be a little extreme for your work environment, but if you have people that can collect clothes that you can donate, or even this can work for a student if you work with students. Assessment. So did the resources for physical needs were met? So she expressed that the clothes voucher helped her get 3 new outfits. She was able to come in on time after dropping off her child, and she was able to be prepared and focused each day. And she states that she's not as stressed now because of the time shift. We allowed her to be flexible. Assessment of learning needs. So her performance was better. She was focused and expressed that the organization training worked for her and she's better organized. Equipment, we didn't implement any equipment, so that does not pertain to this situation. Assessment of comprehension and understanding, so improvement. Assessment of application was excellent. Assessment needs were all met, so she was able to focus, come to work on time, and effectively managed her life and work balance. So overall, her needs are met using this coached method. And She was able to communicate between her and apply her skills to communication between the meetings that we had together. And was she able to critically think? I would say so, because now she's well organized and she has critical thinking before, but now we have improved that. And then communication. So this is documentation of on a regular basis. Yes. So we've documented that we've talked to her twice. The first, they were both face-to-face. One was initial plan, and then the other one was an assessment. So observation, initial plan, and assessment. And then health. So her health is, she expressed that she has no health concerns. So we're going to say that she has good health. Her attendance was not affected. Vaccines, or we're going to say that she told us that her vaccines were up to date, physical up to date. There was no drug screening or background check applied to this because she was already an employee. And education, yes, we did educate her, give her resources. We did give her professional training, and we did observe and assess her. So we discussed with her what we've seen and what the tools were available to help her. And we did communicate. We gave her a copy of the communication that we had. And then a summary. Basically, you would write the summary of exactly what went on between caring, observing, assessing, and health education. And then documentation. If there was any documentation that I wanted to put with this, I could put this in with this analysis. And so we'd have a record of, you know, how I helped them. Sometimes you may not need this documentation, but this analysis tool will help you kind of gear towards, yes, I'm meeting all these needs for my employee, my students, or myself. You can do a self-analysis on your, to make sure that you're meeting the job performance that you need to do, or within that role you're at. So this can be applied to different things. You may not want to fill out the whole thing, but you can use it as a guide to help you better reach your employees, students, whoever it may be. And then we'll go back to our, so hopefully that will help you figure out how to fill out that form if it was confusing too. And then keep calm, we're almost done with this training. So to recap, care, observe, assess, communicate or communication, health education, and documentation can be taught to students, can be shared with your employees, and as well as can be taken care of, you know, patients within your life, wherever it may be. You can use this to help increase performances, deal with customers, or in your own life to reflect yourself. And so using the COACH acronym will help to make sure that you remember that every employee and student is important. And if you use the COACH daily, then you can improve the work environment, the work performance, and the attitude of all employees and students. So remember this each day when you are educating your, as an instructor or overseeing your employees, or want to improve overall work performance and life. And thank you for your time. I hope this gives you a new insight on how to help your staff, your peers, or anyone. And there's a recap of my information. If there's any questions, I will take questions about this now. Or if you want to share some of your ideas from the analysis, you can do that. So we'll take the rest of the time to do discussion.
Anyone has questions, feel free to type them in the chat, or again, you can raise your hand, click that button, and I can enable your talk function. there are no other questions or comments, we'll go ahead and wrap up then. Tabitha, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing this presentation. We will make sure that everyone gets a copy of the presentation, and the recording, of course, of the webinar will always be available afterward. So Tabitha, thank you again.
Yes, well, thank you for having me, and I hope this will help everyone in their work environment and anywhere else that they may want to use it. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Thank
okay,
you.
well, you guys have a good day.
Thanks, you too.
Bye-bye.
Okay, we are running, let's turn my video back on here. We are running a little bit ahead of schedule. We have Ann Brackett and Alicia Wojciuch with Strengths University scheduled to start their presentation at 12:30. So everybody take a lunch break, stretch your legs, and we will see you all back here at 12:30. Thanks.
Lots of stuff, lots of responsibilities. Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. Yes. I will continue with this webinar knowing that I'm recorded. Thank you for letting me know, Zoom. Yes. Okay. Supervisor 101. What no one ever told you, unless you happen to have seen some of our other webinars or sessions, then maybe you heard it from us. But for the most part, when folks get promoted to supervisor, they really don't get a lot of guidance on what they're supposed to do, which is really, really frustrating. So let's dive in. Alicia, what are the roles of the manager?
Yes. So also, as we're going along, if you have any questions or things that you would like to know, please feel free to use the chat or raise your hand. We're happy to, answer questions as they come in. So just again, feel free to ask questions as we're going through. But when we think about the 4 roles of a manager, and when we're using the term manager in this context, we're really thinking about anybody that's supervising others. And so you might not have the official title of manager, or you might not even have the title supervisor in what you do, but if you lead others and supervise others, these are the roles that are included in that. So oftentimes recruitment or hiring is part of that process. So thinking about, getting those folks that you want to work for you or work in your department, and then being part of that process as we're working to get them hired and onboarded. The second role of a manager or supervisor is thinking about the engagement of the folks that they are leading. So how likely are those folks to be actively working towards the goals of what the department or the university or institution is doing? And we'll talk a little bit more about all of these as we go through. The next one is performance management, which it might be the piece that we typically think of or associate the most with folks that are supervising. So really thinking about how do we help the folks that we are leading do the things that they need to do, and how do we help them do those things well. And then the last piece is also development. So how do we help grow the folks that we are leading? How do we help them both within their role of what it is that they need to continue to improve on, but just again, as an employee, as a human, how do we help them develop as well? So as we think about the 4 roles, those are kind of going to be the guideposts of what we're chatting about today. So wanted to, of course, start there so we're all on the same page.
Definitely. So we're, of course, as Katie said, Gallup certified strengths coaches. And we use Clifton Strengths, used to be called Strengths Finder or Strengths Quest, as a framework for most of the training and the coaching that we do. And Gallup does a ton of research around strengths, around management, business organization, all that jazz. And they have found the most expensive mistakes that leaders make. And some of you may be thinking like, well, I'm not a leader. I mean, I supervise some people. If you're in charge of other people, you are a leader, or you can be a leader. So the first one is not establishing expectations. And we would add to that clear expectations. The next one is not creating accountability. And honestly, in our experience, this is one of the most challenging things for supervisors, having those conversations of, hey, you're not meeting the expectations. What are we going to do here? And then the last one is not continually coaching. And coaching is a relatively new trending thing in supervision, but they have, again, done a lot of research, and it's super important. And as Alicia said, we'll get more into this in depth in a little bit. So, okay. Number 1, engagement. So I'll just read the quote since we're here. Always, and as I read this quote, I love this quote, really appeals to me. And I would imagine as I read it, you probably already read it because you guys can read, but I would imagine you're thinking, oh, we don't do that at this is not true for where I work. Always treat your employees exactly the way you want them to treat your best customers. And I would say in higher ed, because we're all kind of freaking out right now, low enrollments, budget cuts, all that jazz, we have this student first attitude. And I don't think that students should go last at all. But what the research shows is that how engaged your team members are really impacts how engaged your students are. And you know how important student engagement is for their success, for their retention. So let's dive into engagement a little deeper.
Indeed. So like Jan said, Gallup has done research both within Clifton Strengths and then beyond that, just around productivity and how people show up in the workplace. You know that Gallup polls about everything all the time, right? So what they have found in their research around productivity and, again, putting it into this idea of employee engagement, that they've really found that there are 3 types of employees. So there are employees who are engaged. And when we're talking about this idea of engaged, we are talking about those employees that want to be at work, the employees that are actively contributing to what it is that we're doing. There's a picture of a rowboat here because we like to use that as an analogy. When we get through the 3, I'll talk about what that analogy is. So the second group is folks that are not engaged. They're there, they're showing up, they're not actively working against what we're doing, but they're also just not contributing to their full potential and really helping us take what we're doing to the next level. And then the third group is the folks that are actively disengaged. So those are the folks that maybe are more inclined to complain, more, I don't know, toxic is a word I think that is used around quite a bit, but just those folks that bring, again, the energy, the productivity, they're working against what we're doing because they're not engaged. So the analogy of the rowboat is really just thinking about those of our team members who are engaged are the folks that are rowing the boat forward, right? We're working together in momentum to get where we're going. Folks who are not engaged, they're not rowing backwards, but they're just kind of sitting there holding their oars out of the water, out of the way. So they're there, they might be contributing to the, yeah, go, let's do it team, but they're not actively working again to their full potential and doing that with us. And then those folks that are actively disengaged are the folks that are rowing against what we're doing. Another way to kind of think about this or visualize what this could look like at work is thinking about you're walking into the building and there's a piece of trash on the ground. So the folks that we are working with that are engaged are the folks that are going to notice that piece of trash on the ground and throw it in the trash can because they want the place where they're working, they want the organization to be better than it was when they found it. Folks who are not engaged might like notice the trash and think, somebody should pick that up, right? That looks bad, somebody should get that. And then the folks who are actively disengaged are the people that just threw it on the ground. Like they don't care, right? They're not invested in what the organization is doing, where it's headed, what the institution is up to. So again, as we're thinking about employee engagement, that's a way to be thinking about what does that mean?
Definitely. And if you haven't already figured it out, you really want to shoot for an engaged team. Like that's the way to go. So again, lots of data, lots of research, and Gallup has found that engaged teams have 10% more customer engagement, which is exactly what I was talking about. If you went to someone at your institution and said, I know how we can get students 10% more engaged, you would have their complete undivided attention until you told them it was by focusing on the employees, and then they would be very confused, which is unfortunate. 23% more profitable. And of course, we, generally work for nonprofit, but what does that mean? Like, instead of, shareholders getting the money, it's money that we can reinvest into students and education instead of being wasted. 18% higher productivity in sales. And what are sales in higher ed? Enrollment, right? That's good. 14% overall higher productivity. So just getting more done towards our goals, towards our objectives. 43% less turnover. How many of y'all have lost people? Well, we didn't lose them. They quit, or, because they were tired of the nonsense and they wanted to go find a better opportunity. Now, what happens to you when those people leave? If you're lucky, you get to replace them in a couple months after they go through that process. If you're not lucky, oh, Becky's leaving? Well, guess who gets to do Becky's job then? All y'all. So we need less people leaving for that reason. And 66% higher well-being of those employees. And I don't know if this past year or so has left you stressed, overwhelmed, all that jazz, but a higher sense of well-being would be really great right now.
Indeed. So again, when we think about the manager or the supervisor, the person that is leading the team, leading people, what Gallup has found might be a little counterintuitive to some of the things we might think about. So let's start on the far right, on that donut, if you will, on the far right, as we hopefully have just finished lunch. So when we think about engagement, the way to drive your engagement down the quickest is to ignore your team. And when we talk about ignoring your team members, that means that you're not providing them any sort of feedback at all. You might not even speak to them as you come in the building, right? Like your supervisor ignores me. That's the fastest way to drive down engagement. And so you can see here that when that is the case, that when the supervisor ignores the folks that they're leading, 44.9% of the folks are actively disengaged. So actively working against what the institution, organization, team is doing. 52% are not engaged. They're just showing up to collect their paycheck, doing enough not to get fired, that kind of thing. Only 2.2% of folks are engaged, right? That's a terrible number. We don't want to see that. So that here, the middle donut, if you will, is looking at when a supervisor only focuses on someone's weaknesses or negative characteristics. So this is the manager or the supervisor that is not checking in or offering development or praise, but, oh, you did that wrong, right? Maybe a little bit of micromanaging. But with that, it is interesting, the actively disengaged drops down to 22%. Still not a great number, but smaller than 44. The not engaged folks drops down to 33, and the engaged folks jumps up to 45%. So interesting that as we're looking at that, just that amount of attention and engagement from the supervisor to the folks that they're leading makes a difference. But we want to be here on the far left side. We want to be working towards being the leaders that focus on a person's strengths and positive characteristics. When we do that, only 1% of folks are actively disengaged. And of course, that is definitely where we want to have that number. The not engaged folks are about 38%, and the engaged folks jump up to 61%. So again, as we think about the incredible impact that you can have as somebody that is leading a group, be it students, be it student workers, be it other professional staff, knowing that focusing on folks' strengths and positive characteristics really makes a huge impact in what people are willing to do and able to do to work toward the goal of what the team is doing. Incredibly important to work on focusing our energy in that space.
Absolutely. So we can't see you, but I want you to raise your hand or think to yourself and answer these prompts. Do you always or sometimes or most of the time talk to people in elevators, airplanes, wherever you go? Oh, Betsy, I can't see you. Just in your head. Okay. Do you have a color-coded or otherwise organized closet? Oh, Stacy Belleville is, I guess, raising her hand. Excellent.
Yeah, she's raising her hand. She's telling us that she does that.
Yay. Okay, you can do it. Yay. Okay, cool.
She should be, she's on mute, but if she unmutes, she should be able to hear.
Oh, I mean,
If
you
you're
can.
talking about me, I didn't want to talk. I was just raising my hand that yes, that's me.
Okay,
Yes.
cool. Yes, yes.
Love it.
So,
Which is
you
funny
guys-
because I'm an introvert.
Oh, okay. Really?
It is.
Huh.
Strangers are
Interesting.
different.
Okay, cool. All right. Do you always or almost always write down a list of things to do and stick to it? I write the lists. I have a lot of them right here. I don't always do them. What about on the weekends? Make a list of things to do on the weekends, and I assume ... implied stick to it. Do you always or almost always need to pick someone to race while driving? I know Alicia and I both do. And it's not like a road rage thing. Cliff Judy does, yes. But it's just strategically, how can I get there mostest fastest? Do you always or almost always ask too many questions? Or you're told you ask too many questions. You're fine with it, but other people are like, whoa, calm down. And finally, do you push that elevator button to remind it that you're there? Okay. So these are all random things that people do, right? But really what we're talking about, these are behaviors that stem from talents. And Gallup defines talent differently than what you might do if you went on America's Got Talent. They define it as a natural recurring pattern of thought, feeling, or behavior that can be productively applied. Operative word there is can, because sometimes you don't use it productively, and we'll get to that in a hot second. Alicia, what is the difference between talent and strength?
Yeah, so when we think about strength in the Clifton Strengths and the Gallup framework, we are really thinking about the ability to consistently produce a positive outcome through near perfect performance in a specific task. So when we think about our talents, we want to work to develop those into strengths. And so you might be thinking, okay, we just made a really strong jump between engagement and talking about what I can do to this terminology around strengths and talents. But it is not a jump, because being able to understand and articulate your own set of talents and work to build those as strengths helps you on a day-to-day basis. And then again, if you are leading folks, being able to identify the positive characteristics, the strengths, the talents of the folks that you're leading, you're going to help them be more engaged. So again, when we think about this terminology, talents are those things that are innate to you through nature or nurture, however you want to think about how you get to that space, but they are an ingrained set of talents for you that show up without thinking, right? So being somebody that, like Ann said, we both, I think it's my arranger talents that show up in this space, but thinking about driving down the road, I have to be able to compare myself to a car around me. So racing that car, to pay attention to, is this lane the one that I should be in at this time? Do I need to, even though you're supposed to go fastest in the far left lane, is that actually the lane that goes the fastest, right? So that's an arranger talent showing up for me. And again, thinking about how do you invest knowledge and skill and time into those talents, that's how we get to strength. So that's how, again, we've made kind of this jump to thinking about engagement, this list of fun talents to pick on a little bit, and then these pieces of terminology.
So let's talk a little bit about the strengths approach, because again, you remember from the supervisor effect, focusing on strengths is going to give you way more bang for your buck. So Clifton Strengths is based in positive psychology. And in fact, they have determined that Dr. Donald Clifton is actually the grandfather of positive psychology and the father of strengths, the strengths framework. Because, well, he decided to do it first. That makes sense. But basically, what they were trying to do was figure out, and this is my context showing, they wanted to find out what talents people had that made them the best at blank. So what kind of talents do the best teachers have? What kind of talents do the best politicians have? What kind of talents do the best CEOs have? Whatever it is. And they assumed, as most of us probably would, that they have certain things in common. And so therefore, not knowing what I want to do, I'll just figure out what my talents are, and then I can plug it in, and it'll tell me the exact type of thing I should go into to excel. But they found the exact opposite. They found over 400 individual talents. And in the course of that, what they have found is that the people that excelled in whatever field they were in were the people that used those individual talents, focused on them, and maximized them. So they took that talent, turned it into a strength, and they excelled. But the type of talent was all over the place. It didn't matter. So no matter what your talents are, no matter what talents your team members have, you can excel at whatever you're doing, but you have to understand what those talents are, and you have to invest in them so that they show up as strengths. And the conventional approach, of course, is kind of the opposite, right? Like, and it's kind of that middle donut, which, you know, you're really making me hungry there for a while, Alicia, but that middle donut of, well, what's wrong with you? Let's talk about that. I normally don't like to talk to my employees, but you sure screwed the pooch on that one. So let's have a chit chat, because that's how you talk, I guess. I don't know, in my head. But this is the exact opposite. We're focusing on what people do well instead of what is quote unquote wrong with them. And we love this Maya Angelou quote: if you're always trying to be normal, you will never know how amazing you can be. So again, it's focusing on the things that already come so naturally to you and that you already do well. And finally, just again, a little bit about this approach. I think we've all heard, oh, you should be well-rounded, right? Be well-rounded, just be good at everything. Or rather, don't be bad at things. So if we look at that from like, oh, here's average. So, okay, just make sure everything's around here. And if there's something down here, let's put a bunch of effort to get it up there so we can build well-rounded. Instead, the research shows if you're already up here with something and you put just a little bit of effort, you get exponential results versus down here, you have to put so much effort just to get up to normal. It's ridiculous. So strengths don't care about being well-rounded as an individual. We care about well-rounded teams. So Alicia, I know that one of the things, complaints, thoughts people have when we talk about strengths is, what about weaknesses?
Indeed. And so we don't shy away from strengths we don't shy away from weakness when we are talking about the strengths framework, but we do shift that definition a little bit. We think about it as a shortage or misapplication of talent, skill, or knowledge that causes problems for you or others. And so really through the years of work that we have done around the strengths framework, we really have seen, and again, all the work around the strengths framework would agree with this as well, that the strengths that are not, or the talents that are not at the top of the list for you, are very rarely going to be the actual things that cause you problems. So when we think about strengths, again, we can talk through some of this later if anybody has any questions, but when you take the strengths assessment, you get your top 5 strengths typically. You can purchase the whole report to see where the 34, we call them themes, because they're groups of talents, right? Remember Anne mentioned that there were over 400 individual talents. That's nonsense if you're going to create an assessment to give to people to create some common language. So they put those 400 individual talents into themes, and that's what we're talking about. And so again, you can purchase your report, see how exactly these talent themes lay out. For me, activator is the lowest, the number 34 talent set for me, but very rarely does the fact that activator is down at the bottom of my list. So that's that idea of making decisions quickly, moving fast, being super high energy. Very rarely does that show up as the thing that actually causes problems for me. More likely, it's the things that are in the top of my strengths or talent list that are going to show up because it is a misapplication of talent, skill, or knowledge that is causing problems. And so again, when we think about weakness in the strengths framework, it really is that awareness piece of where our talents are either in hyperdrive or not being used well or in the right context. And that is one of the things that we love about the strengths framework, because it really helps us jump into that conversation very quickly, especially if we're thinking about leading folks, being able to have that language to talk with them both about their really positive characteristics and to have a common language to talk about the things that are actually getting in the way of what they're doing, is really just, again, one of the strongest benefits of using the strengths framework. So it's interesting that that's one of the times, or a lot of times, the question that comes up, well, you're only talking about this nice fluffy stuff about all the things that people are good at, but it really is an excellent tool for self-awareness around the places where we do have challenge as well.
Definitely. And again, Gallup, research, statistics, let's do it. When people work in the strength zone, so again, understanding what their talents are and focusing there, they're 3 times more likely to report an excellent quality of life. That seems good. 6 times more likely to be engaged. And remember, we're pro-engagement. People in the strength zone have more positive interactions with their coworkers, with their customers. So students, the people that you supervise, your supervisor, etc. They're more productive overall, and they have more positive, creative, and innovative moments. So really being in that strength zone, understanding your talents, making sure your team understands their talents is really beneficial when you think about all the things that we have to do right now in higher ed. Okay, so let's shift gears and we're going to talk more about performance management, your typical, how do we get people to do stuff of supervision? And for some reason, I've bogarted all the quotes today and I'm going to do it again. The only real difference between one organization and the other is the performance of its people. And this is really, you know, I think it's kind of a sticky wicket for people because you kind of know, like, I'm a supervisor, I'm responsible for getting these people to do things, but how do you do that? Because again, no one tells us that. So let's dive in.
Indeed. And so as we think about effective performance management, one, we set the stage. We work to help our folks be engaged by focusing on their strengths, by focusing on their unique individual set of talents. And then we use those strengths to establish expectations. So we have to help our folks understand what it is that they are expected to do. Sometimes, as we know, that lines up with an actual job description. Sometimes that has to shift, and sometimes we're only doing other duties as assigned, right? Like, we know that that's the catch-all that shows up. But what is most important, if we are thinking about being someone that leads others, we have to establish expectations. The second piece of that is we have to continually coach. And when we talk about this idea of continually coaching, a lot of times the people that we get to coach are come back and say, I don't know how to coach. I've never been taught that, right? And again, that's why we do what we do with Strengths University. But continually coaching really means helping folks, again, understand those expectations, have conversations around them, and help people work to grow. And so the coaching, again, Clifton Strengths is an excellent tool for that because it just gives you that shortcut language. You don't have to have the Clifton Strengths language to be able to talk to people. Tell me something you think you're really good at, right? You don't have to have that, but it is helpful. And then the third piece of what effective leaders do is that they create accountability. And sometimes that, again, is very challenging, incredibly scary to think about, ooh, I'm the person that's supposed to both help folks understand what they're doing, coach them along the way, and then hold them accountable to, again, what that expectation was. But we're going to continue to talk a little bit more about how we do that. But those are the three really big pieces that we're going to focus on in this performance management piece.
Definitely. And if you're getting a little overwhelmed and or thinking, this is great information, but I still don't really know. We're currently doing our first supervisor summer camp, but it's going really well. And so we decided we should do it in the fall, but of course we can't call it summer camp in the fall. So we have just opened registration for the fall Supervisor Strengths Institute, where we're going to cover all this stuff more in depth and really focus on implementation, because hopefully you guys are finding this information helpful and you've got some aha moments and you're like, yes, this is great. But I think we've all also sat through those trainings, those webinars, gone to conferences and go, oh my gosh, this is great. And then we get home and we don't do anything with it. So we really focus on that. We'll give you a little bit more information later if you're interested and would like to register. But performance management, first thing, expectations. And I will do this quote because Alicia said it and it'd be weird for her to say her own quote. But the distance between expectations and reality is disappointment. Alicia, do you want to talk about how that's not really your quote? Or
I do want to talk about how that's not really my quote, but it is something that has really made a strong impact in the way that I approach things and thinking about this idea of expectations. It was actually a tweet from a former pastor that that I followed that, again, just really stuck with me. There are lots of different versions. I've tried to, Google and figure out who actually said it. And there's just so many, again, different variations that it comes from. But really, the reason Anne attributed it to me, because I say it a lot, but what it's really talking about is, again, that if we do not share what we expect with other people of those people, we are going to be disappointed because we have not given them the tools or the knowledge or the information to know what we need or what we want from them, right? And I like the quote that Stacy threw in the chat as well, that we can see, and it says that expectation is the root of all heartache, right? And so when we think about this, thinking about expectations as a way to have a conversation so that people don't disappoint us, so that we don't feel that heartache, because we are all on the same page of knowing where we're headed, right? It takes it from this internal thing that I know that I expect you to do this, and this is how I expect you to do it, and clearly communicating that so that you, as the person who is either I am supervising, or even just a friend or a partner, when we have conversations about clear expectations, we allow folks the opportunity to rise to those, or to help us adjust the expectations if they're not reasonable. So when we think about what happens when we don't have clear expectations, we run into some definite challenges with engagement. And so again, Gallup has created a tool, because that's the thing they do, studying productivity and engagement. It's called the Q12. And so what they have done, there's lots of different surveys and assessments out there about employee engagement. But Gallup has boiled all of their research down into 12 simple questions. And that first question in the Q12 is, I know what's expected of me at work, right? When we don't know what is truly expected of us at work, it becomes stressful, because when we don't have that clear information about where we're headed, we're wasting a lot of energy thinking and using that time to think about the stress that it's creating, or wasting energy trying to figure out what it is that people are expecting us to do. Have I done all the things I'm supposed to do? Were they expecting more? And then again, when we think about this idea of accountability becomes incredibly difficult, because if we have not explained to others what the expectations are, it's incredibly difficult to hold people accountable to that. One, because either they're completely off base and haven't done the things that we expected them to do, or they've done it but not in the way that we were wanting them to do it, right? So again, just thinking about the importance of expectations, it really is, again, the number one question on the Q12, one of the most important indicators of employee engagement.
For sure. So just a few basics about setting expectations, because it is so important. ABC, always be clear. If you're ever thinking to yourself, well, they should just know, you're wrong. Write it down. Make it explicit. Because one thing that we obviously don't have time to go into every single aspect of all this stuff, but because of your talents, that includes the way you think and the way that you interpret the world. So what you think is, duh, obviously you would do that, is not necessarily true for someone else if they have a different talent set. And that's not to say they don't have high quality work. It's just that I might interpret it that way because it didn't show up the way that I thought it should, which is why that conversation piece is so important. Don't assume, which I guess is kind of what I just said. I think we're all guilty of this. I know I certainly was. Do you have any questions? Betsy, I need you to do XYZ. Do you have any questions? And that seems like it's an open invitation, but it's not really getting into specifics. And it assumes that the person on the other end has any sort of baseline of what they're supposed to do. Like my example here is always, I took statistics when I was working on my PhD, and really nice instructor, willing to answer anything. So he would, do you have any questions? In my head, I'm like, yeah, I have all the questions. Please explain statistics to me. But I wasn't going to say that, right? So I just didn't say anything. And I passed because of his everybody gets an A policy. But just asking, do you have questions, is not enough. It has to be a conversation. Because again, the way I see the world is through my talents. And if I'm having a conversation with Betsy, are there any Betsy's on that's always kind of my go-to name, but Betsy has different talents, and she might think that there are easier, better ways to do it. And if we don't have a conversation, then all of a sudden I'm saying, I expect you to do X, Y, Z. It should look like this. And now Betsy is all of a sudden having to work outside her own strength zone, which means wasted energy, more frustration, less engagement. And finally, develop a system. With everything, all of our trainings, everything we cover, we always talk about developing a system, because when you have a system, it's autopilot. When you don't have a system, every time something happens, you're like, oh, Ann and Alicia said I have to do expectations. What is that going to look like? And it's too much stress. It's too much. You're too busy. Your brain doesn't like it, too much energy. So we're just going to do it the old way, which is to not do expectations. So develop a system. And you can do this one, Alicia. I'm going to let you do that one.
Yeah. So I don't know if we have any Brene Brown fans besides Ann and I on this call, but Brene Brown in, I think, especially Dare to Lead, but in some other things, mentions and uses this quote that clear is kind. And the rest of the quote also goes on to say that unclear is unkind. And so as we think about leading others, having expectations of what we need them to do, we have to be clear so that everybody knows what is expected where we're headed. Clear is kind. And so sometimes folks are, well, I'll give them an idea, but then I don't want to micromanage, or I don't want to do this. And there's a difference between micromanaging a project or product or person and setting a clear expectation. So again, as you are thinking about how this might apply to you, keep in mind that clear is kind, and that can help us reframe some of those stories around setting expectations. So just remember that, if nothing else, clear is kind.
Okay. All right. Wow, I put a lot of quotes in here. That's all right. We like quotes, right? So number 2, accountability, which again, in our professional opinion, is the worst, because people don't know how to do it. A lot of feelings involved. And so generally we avoid it. But the only way we succeed as a group is not simply by following directions, but in keeping each other accountable for our actions, because otherwise you're not managing performance. So what are some obstacles to holding people accountable? And these are kind of our current methods / non-methods. Fingers crossed method. I hope everybody just does what they're supposed to do, because I don't want to have to deal with it. / I don't have time to deal with it. I think we all really like that one. And sometimes it works, but when it doesn't, boy, does it not work. Q9, again, back to this engagement survey that they have developed. The 9th question is, are your coworkers committed to doing quality work? And I know that when I was a supervisor, and if I had 10 people, I had 9 superstars, or at least 9 people who were definitely doing their jobs, and then you had the one person who maybe not so much, I would kind of justify to myself, well, I'll just focus on these 9 people because they're doing so good, and just try to keep this person from killing anyone or whatever, or hope they do kill someone so I can actually fire them. But what I didn't understand is that when you let these individuals not live up to expectations, whatever they are, what you're really doing is negatively impacting the engagement of everyone else. Because flip side, have you ever been on a team where one of your coworkers, was just not doing what they needed to do? Maybe you had to pick up the slack, or maybe you just watched as this person didn't really do much and nothing happened to them. How did you feel? Did you feel like maybe a little less willing to put the extra effort in? Maybe, oh, well, they come in late all the time. Maybe I'll start coming in late too. Like, that's what happens. And I know it's just helpful to kind of reframe it as, what I'm really doing by stepping up and holding someone else accountable is making sure the rest of my team stays engaged. And that's just a helpful kind of twist to help give you the motivation to do something that we're not really jazzed about doing. Another thing that holds us back from really holding people accountable, and in all of our trainings, we really focus on the stories we tell ourselves. And some people call these limiting beliefs. But if you have a story about how I'm just not an assertive person, or they're already so angry, if I talk to them about this, they're going to be even more angry, and it's going to turn into a worse situation. So those stories keep us from even starting to do anything because they hold us back. And specifically, I mentioned assertiveness because a lot of folks, period, straight up, do not know how to be assertive. And when I was younger, me too. I had to learn to be assertive. And people think that assertiveness is something like, oh, it's a talent. It's not one of the talent things. Like, you don't get that. No, it is a skill set. And you can learn to be assertive, but you have to recognize that it's an issue for you. And you have to make the decision to work on it. But when you feel like you can't be assertive, then holding people accountable, yeah, like that's a big hill to climb. Okay.
Indeed. So what are the ways that you can hold your team accountable, right? Those are some of the obstacles or things that we might do that do not serve us well. But when we think about holding our team accountable, again, we have to start by setting clear expectations. We can't hold people accountable to things that we have not articulated that are things that need to be done in a way that they need to be done. So we have to start by setting clear expectations. I think, again, thinking about this idea of continually coaching or creating the space and the time to have those conversations around the expectations is that it is imperative that we have one-on-one meetings with the folks that we're leading. And they need to be intentional one-on-ones, not the situation where, okay, we're both in the same spot. We have this 30 minutes on our calendar. What do you have for me? That is not an effective one-on-one. And we can talk about that a little bit more as well. But when we think about holding folks accountable, having that time and space set is incredibly important. The next thing, we have to be brave and timely. So again, if there is a situation where someone is not meeting their expectations, you have to be kind, you have to be brave and have that conversation, because the longer we let it linger, the more difficult it is. I'm sure we have all had that situation or circumstance or in our lives where there's been something that we've needed to address, but you keep putting it off and then it turns into a bigger thing, right? We don't want to get into that cycle. We need to be brave and timely when we're talking about helping hold the folks that we're leading accountable. Again, this applies to student workers. This applies to the professional staff that we might be leading. It applies across the board. The third thing, when we are having these conversations, we are not there to berate or demean or diminish anyone, but we are there to be developmental. We are there to help people grow through this conversation about what are the expectations. So again, thinking about, what is getting in the way? How are your strengths? How are your talents showing up in this space? We have to help folks learn from what we're wanting from them, from those expectations. That is, again, just one of the most important pieces, that it has to be developmental to be productive. And then the final piece is document everything. We're going to continue to give you some tools thinking about one-on-ones and those kinds of things. But again, documenting everything, if it ever comes to a place where you have to let someone go, or there has to be an official, performance improvement plan or something like that, the more that you have documented the clear expectations, the conversations that you have had, the more seamless that process is going to be. It's also incredibly helpful for the folks that you are leading, that you have had that conversation and that they can see very clearly in your written documentation about what was expected, what did you do, and what happened.
Exactly. And just to add on to that, when we think about accountability, we do, and in fact, I have been guilty of it just now, we have this negative attitude, like holding people accountable, somebody did something wrong. Holding people accountable also includes, you nailed it, you did it perfectly, or you did it beyond my expectations. And the documenting everything, that's helpful there too. Like, how many of you are / just did annual reviews? And In fact, we have a podcast, by the way, My Circus, My Monkeys. This episode this week is actually on annual reviews. But how many of us are like, oh, Becky, I think she did some good stuff this year. What was it? No idea. Can't remember. Becky, what did you do? You document it. It's all there. When you go to do the annual report, the good stuff's been there. The bad stuff's there. Boom, 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 boom. And celebrating is super important and actually increases engagement. So making sure that you hold people accountable both ways is important. And the one-on-one meetings are important for having that time, whether it's good or bad, because how many of you have had your supervisor go, hey, I need to see you at 4 o'clock before you leave? Well, your day's shot, right? Because you're going through your head everything you could have possibly done wrong in the last couple weeks, right? Even if they're bringing you in to say you won an award, it's just this drop by, oh my God situation. But if you're holding someone accountable and you have to have these conversations, and if you have these scheduled one-on-one meetings, then there is no awkward, we need to talk conversation, good or bad. It just happens in the meeting. It makes it way less stressful on you because you don't have to oh, I really need to talk to Becky. When should I? Oh, I'm really busy today. Oh, I'm busy the rest of the time, infinity. So I guess never talk to Becky. But have it in there makes it super easier for everyone. Okay, let's move on to coaching.
Yes.
Coaching is unlocking a person's potential to maximize their own performance. So a little bit more about that. Coaching versus bosses. Coaches, rather than bosses, focus on employee engagement. So again, some of the things we've already talked about. They also understand and leverage their team's talents and strengths. So focusing on what they do well. They set clear expectations and performance goals. See how this is all coming together so beautifully. And, oh, that's it. That's it for that slide. So, okay. Is that all I want to say about that? But another point is coaches ask questions and bosses tell. I don't know why I didn't put this on that slide, but I didn't. So if you're just telling people things, which is, I get it because I'm a supervisor. Everybody's looking at me because I guess I should know everything because I'm a supervisor. So if you ask me a question, I should just answer it, even if I'm making it up. But coaching actually involves turning that back around and saying, well, how do you think your talents could help you? How do you think they might be getting in your way? Those types of things. All right. Whew. Okay. Alicia.
Yes. So with that, again, how do we move from a boss or traditional space into this coaching, right? How do we do this intentionally? So when we think about, again, what does this even mean? Coaching is using those one-on-ones that we have set up very intentionally to have conversation about things that are happening in the moment, right? Again, we're thinking about this idea of brave and timely. We're not holding these tickets until the annual review. So I had a supervisor who used the analogy of, and I don't know if she came up with it again or if she heard it somewhere else too, right? There's nothing new under the sun. But that if I were driving to work every day and there was a policeman sitting on a side street and clocking my speed every day, and I was speeding through this intersection, but then he stops me at the end of the month and hands me, okay, here's 30 tickets. You're speeding through here all month. That is not helpful to me in any way. I couldn't correct or address that behavior, but now I had all this backup stuff that I had to deal with, right? We don't want to do that to the folks that we're leading. We don't want the annual review to be the time that we give people all those tickets. We need to be having coaching conversations, again, both in the celebration space and in the correction space if there's something that needs to be addressed. Again, how do we do that? We have regularly scheduled meetings and we hold those as sacred time. We don't let that be the first thing that falls off the calendar because things are incredibly busy, right? So we use that as a coaching opportunity. We also know that the folks that we're leading stop by for drop-by conversations. And sometimes it's going to be just to chat. Sometimes it's going to be about a specific question. Again, how do we coach in those moments? The two, again, especially if you have the Clifton Strengths language, but even if you don't, two incredibly powerful questions that help in any situation. Again, if something went really well, or if somebody is struggling on figuring out how to get something done, or working through a student situation, or again, anything, asking them, how do you think your talents are helping you in this situation? And how do you think your talents might be getting in the way? Right? So using those drop by conversations as a mini coaching session, a really quick and easy way to do that. Same thing with problem solving, right? If there's an issue going on, if they come by, if you're working through a problem together, using that that challenge as a space to have a coaching conversation. What's working, what's not, what support do you need? Who could we partner with, right? How do we help folks grow in their role and in the things that they're doing? And then finally, performance improvement, right? If we do get to the point where there is an employee or a student that truly needs a performance improvement plan, again, we want to use that as a coaching opportunity to help them grow, to help them improve their actual performance, and then just overall improve as well. So those are some of the individual coaching opportunities that we might not typically think of, okay, what does coaching mean, right? And again, it's about asking really powerful questions to help folks really become empowered to solve their own problems.
So Alicia mentioned earlier that we want to make sure, especially these one-on-one meetings that we're setting and we're keeping, are intentional. Because I know back in the day when I was supervising folks, I would be guilty of, I don't know that I ever said, what do you have for me? But I would keep it real chill, like, hey, how's it going? How's everything? How are classes, or how's whatever going? What projects? Do you have any? Dogs in the background, sorry if you can hear that. But I did not take advantage of our special time together. So it's really important to, and I will say that one of my talent themes is adaptability. So part of me, there's always this, oh, you want me to set up a bunch of specific things that I do each time? Well, bleep you. No, for real though, that is kind of my instinct. Like, well, I can just, go with the flow. But when you have a set agenda, everybody knows what is expected, and they can plan for it. Things don't fall through the cracks. So when you're setting your agenda, there are a few things to keep in mind. You want to review the past. And again, this is the accountability piece, like what went well, what could be improved, what do we need to really focus on? Because not only did it not go well, it went so poorly, we have to think about some other things. So reviewing the past. We have to prepare for the future. What's coming up? Are there new assignments? Are things changing? Do we need to go over expectations for this new project? Or if we've already set expectations, how are those things going? And then you want to create development opportunities. Because again, when we remember the 4 main roles of you, if you're listening, then development is one of those things. And it's often, like if we think about the last year and a half, how much development we've all gotten to do, not great, because we've been so, like, it kind of goes to the back burner all the time. So creating those development opportunities, really important. So here, Alicia will walk you through an agenda that she uses.
Indeed. So feel free to screenshot this slide, take a picture. We can also figure out another way to share it as well if you would like it. But one of the most effective tools for, again, holding this space sacred, making sure that you are easily and clearly communicating the expectation around a one-on-one, is creating an agenda. The thing that works best for me is that I have a running, we use Microsoft Office where I'm at, is having a running Word doc that the folks that I get to supervise, they fill it out every week. We both have access to it if there are things that I need to add to it for us to discuss so that I don't forget, because I also have adaptability high. I also have individualization high. So really thinking about wanting to know the unique qualities and characteristics and what's going on in my folks' life. But having this agenda really helps us stay focused, be very intentional about that. Again, looking back, thinking also then towards the future, also being developmental, right? Asking, how have your strengths shown up? What's gone really well this week? What has been a challenge? And so using this as a place to consolidate all of that, again, like Anne and like I just said, I have adaptability high. And so it can be, again, when I think about, oh, you want me to have a meeting set for, an agenda set for every meeting with this person, but it doesn't have to be, okay, we're answering this question. Okay, great. Check that off the box. We move to the next question, but it still is a conversation. It just serves as a guide to make sure that you are addressing all the things that you need. Again, also thinking about that idea of expectations and accountability, we build that in so that we know where folks are at. It also gives them an opportunity and a space to be able to ask questions, right? So they don't have to also go through that awkward, okay, well, I was assigned this task and I'm not incredibly sure exactly what I'm supposed to do. They gave me these expectations, but I'm not quite comprehending. They don't have to go through that awkward, okay, well, I've got to go ask Frank about what it is that I'm supposed to be doing on this. And, so it gives you both the opportunity to do that. Again, it's an incredible way to be keeping track of both places to celebrate and if there was something that needed to be addressed. If this is a running agenda, annual review time, I am in the midst of this as we speak, annual review time, being able to go back, okay, what did this person do really well, right? And so again, thinking about if there is an annual review process or evaluation or something that you have to do, looking at what are those questions or what is asked on that review and putting that on the agenda. So again, okay, I have to think about how Frank has met our diversity and inclusion strategic plan outcome. If that's something that I have on my agenda for us to check in, how have you engaged with us each week? I can just go through the agenda and pull out specific examples of what Frank has done, right? So again, using this both as a great place to celebrate and to address concerns, questions, things that need to be documented as well.
Fantastic. Excellent agenda, Alicia. But get one. It doesn't have to be that elaborate. Just start with something. Okay. So we mentioned earlier that we just opened registration for our Fall Supervisor Strengths Institute. So just a little bit about that. What you get is 8 weeks of leadership training. And so we have online modules, 8 weeks of them. You also get 9 group success and accountability calls. So every week we go over the homework and the modules from the week before. In the fall, those are going to be Tuesdays at 1 p.m. They're going to be recorded because we get it, like people are busy and maybe you can't make it to every single one. So we want those to be available to you so you can watch them and rewatch them if that's useful. You also get 3 individual success and accountability calls. It's an 8-week program. So you'll get one that first 4 weeks, one the second 4 weeks, and then one to use afterwards to make sure that you're, again, like we really focus on implementation because knowing stuff's great, but it doesn't actually change anything. So we really want to focus on that. You also get the new Clifton Strengths for Managers report. And Alicia mentioned earlier that typically when you take it, you get your top 5, which is awesome. It's a great place to start. But really your dominant talents, the ones that are showing up every day and really running your life, you don't know that, but they are. It's like your 1 through 10. So you actually get to know what your top 10 talent themes are so you can better learn how to turn them into strengths and avoid that weakness side. And we also have a private Facebook group so we can have conversations. You can get the support you need to be successful, implement what you need to really up your supervisor game. So
Indeed.
We kick off September 21st, and I realize that it's the middle of July, but oh my gosh, it's the middle of July. And we understand that August is dead to us, or you'll feel dead during the month of August. Like it's just too crazy. So we wanted to give you a couple of weeks to get excited and get enrolled now. And we will come back and you can enroll up until that point. We'll do another little burst of ads and that sort of thing at the beginning of September. But let's just get it done. If you're interested, let's sign up. Now, if you look at the entire value of what we're giving you with all those things included, it's over $2,000. But we've priced it at a crazy low rate of $595. And since we like MCCA so much, if you sign up by the end of July, early bird special, you will also get 1 free hour of training for your team. Because it's really important for you as the supervisor to understand your strengths and talents, but it's also important to know your teams. So we want to be able to help you give that to them. Anything you want to add to this, Alicia?
Again, we will cover in depth and with very specific action plans many of the topics we covered today and more. But one of the things that is also on my mind is, if you don't happen to supervise a large group of people, or if you don't supervise anybody, or if it's not necessarily in the budget for your position, right, to be able to engage in this. Again, fingers crossed, we hope it is. I think it could serve anyone. It could also be something to share with a supervisor, somebody that is leading you, because when we have effective and efficient supervisors, it makes our lives easier as well. And so again, just really thinking that it could be also something to share up if that feels like it. If you feel like I am not getting this from my supervisor, I would like to have very clear expectations. I would like to have a more developmental space from my supervisor as well. It could also be an interesting thing to share with some others. But again, no matter if you're leading student workers, if you're leading professional staff, if you want to be a leader in the future, again, even if you're not necessarily supervising a large group of people at this time, all of these processes are still incredibly helpful as an individual, right? So being able to clearly understand what you expect of yourself and how you're going to get there, how you're going to be able to celebrate when you make progress towards what you're doing, how you help yourself course correct if you get away from what your goals, what your expectations are. So again, this really can be so beneficial regardless of where you're at in your actual supervisor journey. Or maybe you've been supervising students or professional staff for a very long time. Again, the research, again, Gallup polls everything about everything. They also have a book out called It's the Manager that came out before the manager's report, but they really are starting to look at knowing that we are headed into very multi-generational workplaces, that we are going to be, there's a very good chance we'll be supervising or working alongside folks from very different generations. And what they are finding is that millennials, so I'm an elder millennial, and Gen Z folks, they are really, really looking for a coach, not a boss. The things that are really pulling people towards organizations and toward places that they want to stay are places that are invested in their development, where they have the ability to become their best, to invest back in the institution. And so, again, thinking about our students, many of them are going to be, again, probably Gen Z, maybe some of the younger millennials. Again, knowing that we also serve diverse populations, all of this, having that developmental approach is important across all the generations, but especially as we think about millennials and Gen Z, they are really, really looking for folks that are coaches, not just somebody that tells them what to do. So,
and I will just say that even though we've gone through, over an hour of stuff, and you're like, oh, good, because I didn't have enough stuff to do. Now there's more stuff for me to do. The reason we focus on supervisor training is because we actually want to make sure that supervisors are less stressed. Because once you understand this and start implementing it, and you have a system, so it's autopilot, your life gets so much better. You are less stressed, and you no longer have to worry about, oh God, Becky, I'm going to worry about it for a month before I do anything. You don't have that anymore. So that's really why we offer this and want to focus on you guys, because it is so important. Your job is so important and you're so stressed, and you don't have to be so stressed. So that being said, we still have some time. Does anybody have any questions about any of the things that we went over, specific situations? It's always, I was going to give you like a break in the middle, but I figured let's just get her done and then we can all take a nap or something with the extra time. But anybody have any questions?
Yeah, feel free to either raise your hand or put it in the chat if there is a question or something you'd like more information about before we work to wrap up our time together.
We have all the answers, so no, I'm just kidding, not all of them.
Do you want to go ahead and go to the next slide, Anne? And then that way, if somebody happens to be typing a question, we can make sure that we give them a second to get that typed. So again, just our contact information. You can see on the screen our names. But again, just thinking about what you have available. Like Anne mentioned, we do have a podcast, of course, that is for free. So you can get it on many of the places where you listen to your podcasts. If you have that, Amazon device with a first name that I won't say in case you happen to have one, you can ask it to play My Circus, My Monkeys, Spotify, Amazon podcast, all those places, Stitcher, all of that. So please feel free to check that out. We also have, of course, the social medias, Instagram and Facebook. And then we do also have a website you're welcome to check out, strengthsuniversity.org. And then Robin did ask in the chat will there be an email from MCCA about the training opportunity we mentioned? So
yes, we'll make sure that happens.
Yes, we will make sure to get that information out to everybody here today.
Excellent.
Perfect. Yes, thanks for asking, Robin. All right, any other questions? Again, please feel free, raise your hand if there is, again, a question about what we covered. You have a topic you want some advice on. We want to make sure that you are getting what you need in the last official 20 minutes that are scheduled for this time together.
All right, well, you have our contact information right there, and I'll work with Katie to get information out about the training and stuff, and so that will, of course, also be contact information if you have any questions later, or just are like, I have lots of questions, but I have to go to the bathroom, I gotta leave now, so, which I also get, so. Excellent.
Anne and Alicia, thank you so much. Great information. So we'll make sure, like I said, to get that out to everyone. And then the recording of the webinar will also send out to everyone who joined today. So thank you both so much. And thanks everyone for joining us today. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Yes, thank you, everybody. See ya.
Bye, guys.